Hi everyone. How's everybody doing on this rainy day? Well, rainy day if you're here in Sacramento, California. I just want to say welcome. Excuse me. This is the first of my programs that I'm doing called Reach for the Stars. And as some of you probably saw, I put it on a Facebook event page to give everybody a heads up if anybody wanted to join me. And this is something that you can also click on later because it will be posted on my page if you're interested. And I'm going to go maybe for about 15 minutes or so and just talk about something that's been in my space that I want to share with you. But before I begin that, I first want to talk about the name of the program, Reach for the Stars, and where that came from. And where that came from was from one of my wonderful mastermind friends, Kathleen. And Kathleen, I put out a just a Facebook request of helping me to find names, and so she put that name in, and it was something that just I just felt it when she said it. And the reason why is because it has so many different meanings to it. Like reach for the stars, you think about just being your best self, and me being an astrologer, it was just such a perfect symbol to also bring in, is reaching for the stars. So that's where that came from. And with that, I just want to move forward. So this is really I've done a few Facebook Lives, and they're usually pretty impromptu and unrehearsed and typical as I usually do it. This also is going to be unrehearsed. So if you can have patience with me through this process, that would be great. And the name of my talk that I want to do today is Spiritual Perfection versus Physical Perfection. And I'm here to display that and hopefully embody some form of spiritual perfection. And I wanted to find those because how I'm going to kind of look around and get my thoughts, so bear with me. How I came up with that was really through doing this. I was out on one of my runs one day, and I was thinking about when I go on Facebook, how in my mind I have all of these things that I want to say, and when I actually turn this on, how I go into this place of where I am paying attention as I'm looking at myself in the camera. How do I look? Do I look crazy? Are people going to go, oh my God, what are you doing? Get off. I don't, I'm not even going to listen to you. So I just make up all these stories in my mind. And for some of you who know or don't know about me, I began a career in cosmetology about 30 years ago. And I picked that career because it was something that I was drawn to, and I felt really like I was in my artistry being a cosmetologist. And one of the things that in working in that world of cosmetology is there is a level of perfection that is in that work, and also perfection when people come in to see you because they're looking for like the best hairstyle for them, what looks best on my face. And so for many years, I'd probably say for about a good 12 years of my career, I worked really hard at creating hairstyles that were like what I considered from an artistic perspective being like the perfect look for somebody. And what I realized over time of doing that business is that after a while, that sense of perfection and how you looked and what other people thought of how you looked, and was this the best look for you, that after a while that just started to wear on me. It started to wear on me, and it just wasn't that same form of gratification of that it was fulfilling me. And I got to a place in my life where I wasn't sure if I can keep doing it, and I just knew that I had to do something different about that. And while I didn't want to go back to school and do what I kind of had originally thought I wanted to do, which was to go into psychology, it's like there's no way I'm doing that. I can't spend that many years doing that. It's not. I just don't want to be in school that long. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this different for me? Because I cannot keep going on this way, dealing with life and people and even myself, seeing from that right or wrong. Is this perfect? What do other people think? That whole mindset. So it was through a course of very serendipitous events that I don't need to go into now, that I began to discover a different way of being with what I from where I started. And I started to look deeper into myself and started to get into more self-awareness work. And one of the things that came up from that was finding a different come from place from which I was going to do this career. And so what that turned out to be is to begin to work on people, not from a place of how do I make this perfect, but how do I make it perfect from the perspective of the perfection of how, like, that sense of feeling good about yourself, and not feeling good about yourself because of what other people think or how you look to others, but what feels good about yourself from inside. Because that, what I discovered, became a form of perfection. And I don't mean that from a personality perspective, I mean that from a more soulful place. And on that note, I want to talk about just those two things. I want to talk about the personality, and I want to talk about the soul. And this is how I'm going to differentiate that to help you maybe put some language to it. And there's many ways of looking at that. And from my background and what I've come from a lot of my spiritual, teachings, I've come from a world of very seeing that from, like, that's two different languages we're speaking. So when we speak the language of the personality, we're speaking the language of the physical perfection of ourselves. We're speaking the language of judgment. We're speaking the language of shame. But when we go into the language of the soul, those words, although some of them are synonymous in both of those areas, they don't necessarily mean the same. So perfection isn't about how it looks for other people. Its perfection becomes, how do I feel? Do I feel connected to what I'm doing? Do I feel in congruency with what I'm feeling? Am I being authentic? To me, that is a form of perfection. And even like what I'm doing today, where, I'm out here putting myself out there, creating this video, it's not necessarily perfect, but yet its action has a perfection to it. So it's in that imperfection that becomes the perfected moment. And that's where I'm getting this concept that I'm talking about of spiritual perfection, because I really believe that we are in a spiritual revolution in our life right now, individually and collectively. And how I see this happening is that our personalities have run amok. And it has run amok to where the polarity has become what is right and what is wrong. And we see things as black or white. There's no middle ground here. It's like either you're on the left or you're on the right. And I'm not saying everybody is, but obviously the majority is, or we wouldn't be in the situation that we are in today. And so I believe that the more that we do our own personal inner work, our own personal self-awareness, that the more that we can bring congruency to our life and to life itself, and that we can begin to connect the disconnected parts of how our society has gone, how our personal life has transpired. So I think with those, hi Mary, I think with becoming and being more aware of where we feel more connected, that is a part of this spiritual perfection that I'm talking about. And believe me, spiritual perfection, okay, I wrote some notes, so I'm going to take a look at that. It's like in that world, there is no shame. Like everything we do is perfect. The fact that we want to, being out in nature is part of that perfection. Just expressing ourselves in whatever that is, in emotion, in, feeling angry, but owning what we're doing. I mean, that is perfection. And society says that that's not right. Oh, don't act that way. Don't say those kinds of things. But it's about being congruent with who we are and what we feel. So if anybody has any comments, please feel free to, write them down, and I can look at those and, make comments back to that if you'd like, or you can just hang in there and listen. And I appreciate you being on the live feed right now. I really do. So again, going back to the nature of our personality versus the nature of our soul, which connects to the physical perfection that we get caught up into by society, the culture, our environment, our, familial upbringing, that whole pressure to be something or do something or to look a particular way, that time has come to where we have got to look at this different. We have got to be with ourselves different and see perfection in a whole new light. And, I really appreciate when I see people out there just putting themselves out there and just being who they are. And for me personally, that's always been something that's been really hard. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, is because this is something that is really difficult for me. I really enjoy speaking, but it's something that as a child has always been like terrifying, with my heart beating and my face turning red, or I go into hysterical laughter because I'm so nervous about what I'm doing. So for myself, this is my form of being perfect, is just being who I am, and people either accept it or they don't, and that's okay, because that's the beauty of life, is that not everybody is for everybody. So we can either turn it off or just say okay and allow other people to express themselves in any way that they feel is important for them. And again, I'm going to kind of go back and forth to where we are in talking about us as individuals, and really how collectively as a country this is all part of this perfectionism that we have put ourselves in a box of, that this is how marriage is supposed to look, this is how gender is supposed to look. Because I truly believe, maybe not in our lifetime, but this whole gender concept that we have going on, this is not going to be what it's like in the future, and you and I will never see it. But I truly don't believe it. I think that we are moving into a whole new level of evolution, and I find it very exciting. I mean, we don't know what it's going to look like. I don't believe that we're supposed to know what it looks like, but I do know what I feel that is really meant to happen here, is to honor what's happening, and to honor those who are really being the trailblazers and being the brave souls that are here, who have incarnated in this lifetime to show us a different way. And our personality gets so caught up into putting things in a box that our soul and our heart can't connect, because we don't know where to put these things inside of ourselves. And I'm just going to share a really interesting observation that I had about myself. So I was at a local store, and I was standing in line, and the individual that was working at the cash register was not obvious, but yet obvious, that there was a gender, how would I say it? I wasn't quite able to identify which gender I was looking at. And so when I was observing this person, I noticed how I tried to put it in the box of male or female. And I knew it was a transgender individual, but I was trying to put it in a box of like, what compartment does it go into? And while I was doing that, I was having the conscious awareness that I was doing that, and I was going, wow, check you out. You are so conditioned by society. And I find myself a pretty open-minded person, but yet that societal conditioning is something that is so subconsciously ingrained in us that we don't even identify it fully in the conscious, like actions of our everyday walking life. And it was really, I was just really taken back by myself, and just, what and how difficult this is for our brains to even understand. And so what our brains can't understand, we want to put it in this area of this place of feeling like, oh, if I put it here, then it makes it feel like life is in control, or it makes it feel like life is safe. But right now, it's like what's happening all over is our safety mechanisms are going off right now, because everything that we have known to be a particular way is no longer right now. And we're seeing it and we're feeling it on all different levels. And so we're being asked to accept something that is new and different, and really, what is the unknown? To trust in something that is the unknown. So I just wanted to share that little story because I was just, I found it very, what's the right word? I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot how even my mind wants to compartmentalize. And that was just kind of eye-opening for myself to see that. And it brought a new awareness to myself. So going back to where I started from, I started in this place of that we are in, I feel we are in a spiritual revolution here, and that people are waking up to their sense of spirituality. And I think that comes in all different forms, and it comes in our personal life and how we live. It can come, for some people, it comes through religion. I don't want to say any of those ways are wrong, right? We just find our way to find connection, to find that deeper place inside of us, that we feel fulfilled. And I also think that part of what's happening here is that we are also being asked to be more open to what's new and what's different, and also to be living from a place of authenticity. And I think that is a really big piece, is for us to be authentic and for us to really just stand in what it is that we feel is honoring ourselves as well as honoring other people. So, part of kind of going now to a different note, I do astrology and I study cycles. Astrology, for those of you who aren't real familiar with it, and most people are not, but astrology is not your horoscope, although you can look up your sun sign, are you a Virgo, Leo, that sort of thing. But that is just such a minute part of astrology, and really astrology is not about horoscopes itself. It is about the day, the time, and the place that you were born, and where the planets were at that exact moment in time that you were born into this world, because that becomes an imprint. And each of the planets and the positioning of where those planets were, the planets represent archetypes, and archetypes are forms of energy and identification that we put, depending on our own personal experience, we put different identification associations to it. Like for some people, the mother archetype, you think of the mother archetype. For some people, it could be the overbearing mother, depending on your own experience. For some people, it could be this warm, nurturing mother. For some people, it could be an absent mother. But just like the mother archetype, and the mother would be represented by the moon in our chart, each one of these planets have a representation of a part of who we are and an aspect of how we express ourselves. And so at the moment in time, astrology and astrology chart represents where those were in that moment of time, and that becomes personal to you and personal to what that means for you in your life. And so when you do an astrology reading, there's from how I do it, there are two ways that I look at it, and I look at it from the perspective of the personality. What did this personality come in here to be? How does this personality react to stress? How does this personality react to how they give and receive love? How does this personality do its warrior? And then there's another aspect of the chart that I always look at, and that is the soul contract of the chart, because we all came here for a purpose, and we all meet people in our lives who take us on a journey, and we go on that journey with them for a purpose. And sometimes people come into our lives and stay a month, sometimes they stay for years, sometimes they stay for even longer than that. And these are all soul contracts that we have. And so the other nature of the chart is looking like, so what am I here for? What am I here in service of? Because we are all here in some way in service of something greater than ourselves. And that's why I'm here doing this. I mean, I did not start out, as I went to cosmetology school and did my thing. My whole thing was to own a salon, be in the hair business, and it's been great. It's been a great ride, but now I'm on to something different, and this is not something that I decided that, I think I'm going to do this. This is something that, as I went through my own personal work, there was a calling for me to do something different, and this is where I was called to go. And what I've done is just continue to answer that call, and it has brought me to this place that I am here right now doing this kind of work where I do astrological readings for people. and I also do astrological coaching or life coaching itself. And I love doing both of it. It's both very fulfilling, and I feel that astrology is a tool that truly can change your life. It can change your life if you choose to integrate and use the information that you can receive from it, because it has changed my life. Because I didn't start out just, oh, I think I'll study astrology. I started out by having a reading, I don't know, 14 years ago, and I got done with that reading and I just said, I have to know more. And it wasn't I need to know more about astrology. I need to know more about myself through this tool, and that's how I got hooked into this. And I haven't stopped. I continue to learn. I continue to go to classes. I just continue to just allow this information, this tool, to teach me more and more about myself, more and more about life. And it has been a great teaching tool. And everybody has a different way in which they connect with something that resonates with them. Everybody has, some people are into the tarot, some people, everybody has their own thing that they connect. And for me, this was what I was connected to. So astrology is something that not everybody will be connected to, but many are. And I really think that this tool is a tool whose time has come, because I think more people are becoming more open to it. And it's because people are becoming more awakened to a spiritual life. And with spirituality, again, I'm going back to that whole connected piece, that whole connection within ourselves. What do you feel connected to? What resonates with you? What is that? Because that is what we want to follow. We want to follow what feels right, and not what feels right in our head, but what feels right in our body, what feels right in our being. And so I'm going to tie that into, again, going back to what is happening in our country right now. How we treat people. Does that feel right? For many of us, we know inside of us, that doesn't feel right. It's not right to, treat people, ban people the way that we are doing. We know that. We know that doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel heart-centered. So with that, I want to thank those of you that jumped on. I appreciate that. It's great. And to play with the concept that I spoke about, where do you see physical perfection in your life? How do you do that to yourself, and how you're going to be able to identify it with it is that if you're feeling some level of shame around whatever that perfection is, that is, you're dealing with more the ego, the personality. It needs to feel accepted. It needs to feel safe. It needs to feel that it's in charge. It's in control. But if we're dealing from a more spiritual place, then our attitude, our feeling becomes different. There's a more of a place where we feel, and it's not like, oh, I don't care what other people think, but there's it's okay whatever other people think. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change how I feel. It's not going to change what my choices are. It's not going to change what my actions are. That is where I want to, begin to identify more of a spiritual, perfected life. It's like, this is what feels right for me. And not from the head, but from the body, because the body doesn't lie. Our body does not lie. Even when we want to ignore it, it will get sick. It will do all these things to say, hello, you're being incongruent. There's not an alignment here. You're not paying attention to me. Pay attention to me. And this isn't about going out and run 40 miles or do any of that other stuff. I do stuff like that. That's my thing. It's kind of how I'm oriented. It's how I'm wired. But that's not how everybody finds that connected place with their body. Everybody gets it differently. And none of those ways are wrong. You just have to find your right way for yourself. So with that, if anybody's interested in looking at their chart, I'd be happy to do that. Just send me a message. And I'm going to be doing this weekly. So I'm not quite sure of my next time that I'm going to be doing it. Probably on Monday, but I'll be posting that. So if you want to join in, I'd be happy to have you on, and give me some ideas that maybe you want to talk about on this, and that would be great. Okay, so for now, have a great day and hope to see you soon. Bye bye. Namaste.